Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Liz Truss has gone the way of the dodo bird, an appropriate analogy, and there's more Russian flags flying in Africa than seems to be in Russia. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. Thanks one and thanks all. And hey, I forgot what's important. I forgot my banners. I got to put my banner up. There you go. There's my banner. Hello to everyone out there. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a few moments with me for a chat. All right, let's start with Liz Truss. Let's get right to it. Liz Truss has bitten the dust. And why? What happened with Liz Truss and what does it mean? Okay, let me start here. I guess if you listen, watch my channel, if you know me, I often have a bit of a different perspective on this. So, it's like Liz Truss, there's a couple of things. Oh, she was such a disaster. She was a dodo. She didn't know what she was doing. She screwed everything up, right? And then, oh boy, she's gone. Things will get better. Let me tell you, I like to use an analogies. Let me tell you how I see the Liz Truss being gone kind of thing. Here's the way I see it. What was Liz Truss going to do to save the UK? You know what I mean? What was she going to do? Did she have like some magic spell? What I'll put it like this. In order to evaluate the economic catastrophe that's going on in the UK, you have to ask yourself a simple question. What created the catastrophe? Okay. To evaluate Liz Truss, she came in, she started doing a particular job. Now, I am not going to defend Liz Truss. Clearly, long before she got in office, it was clear that she was not qualified in any way, shape, or form. She is your typical technocrat. She doesn't know much about the job that she's doing, and she doesn't need to know anything about much about the job that she's doing. Come on, the people are like, "Hey, we got Liz Truss. She's such a dope." Do you think she's less qualified than, let me throw a name out there, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Joe Biden's wandering around the stage half the time with his hands sticking out like he thinks it's like he's working at one of those Halloween corn mazes and he's, being a zombie. You ever go to these mazes when you were a kid? Maybe you don't have in other countries, but so Halloween's the scary time, the scary holiday. And so they have these mazes you walk through at night, and there'll be people dressed as zombies and vampires, and they'll reach out and they'll touch you and you'll scream. And some guy runs out with a fake chainsaw with a noise maker, things like that, and scares you, right? But there's somebody, he's the zombie and he's walking with his hands out like this and he touches you. Oh my God, a zombie, off you run, right? That's Joe Biden. He walks around like a friggin' zombie, right? And if he were a zombie and his partner was Kamala Harris, she'd be safe because zombies eat brains. And guess what? He'd starve to death if he was trying to eat brains with Kamala Harris in there, because I think her head's, yeah, let's move on. I tell you what, her and Liz Truss would be a great pair. There you go. Put Kamala Harris and Liz Truss together and, let them try to figure something out, and you'll find out exactly how technocrats work. But at any rate, so here's a fact of the matter. Let's be honest about why Liz Truss became prime minister. Did she become prime minister because she was qualified? Did she become prime minister because she had an exemplary record in her party? Did she become qualified because she had some great political skills and she was able to, manipulate her way through the political maze of power to get there? I mean, there are people who may not be qualified to do the job. If you know a lot about politics, I have known some when I was dealing with Capitol Hill a lot, doing stuff on Capitol Hill, who, while they're not qualified, they're not good at doing their job once they get in the job. What they're really good at is navigating the political system and the systems of power. So there are people who understand how power works, how powerful energy flows. They can get people behind them. They can screw over just the right person. They know when and timing to make a move, and they can manipulate the system of power in politics to achieve a high-ranking position. I've known people that have done that, right? One might argue at one point in one of my positions, I might have done that. But at least once I got there, I was qualified. But I did have to manipulate the positions of power to move up. Okay, but here's my point. Immediately upon getting power, Liz Truss let everyone know how she got there and why she was there. What'd she do? She started screaming out, "I love Israel. I'm the biggest Zionist ever." Well, okay, first of all, you need to learn how to talk a little bit, right? The biggest Zionist implies actual size. It implies that you're like Andre the Giant, that you are 7'4", 400 pounds, and that you were the biggest giant. She actually said she was the biggest Zionist, meaning she was a very, very large person. Well, you know what? I've known you're smaller than, say, Joe Biden. So you're not the biggest Zionist ever. There's a lot of Zionists considerably larger than you. So perhaps you should have worded it a little differently. But here's my point. Liz Truss got in power because she was an ideologue. She knew the roadmap. She knew you're supposed to say Putin's bad, the neocons are good. She knew that neoconservatism and Zionism are, inextricably linked. So she knew she had to do that. So she said she basically went and knelt to the right knees. You kissed the right rings. She knew, said the right phrases. Boom, she's in power. She knew you don't have to be qualified. All you got to do is look at Schultz, look at Bojo, in fact, I would make this argument. If you now in the US empire, if you are qualified, if you are an intellectual, you can't get the office because you can't get in power because power is set aside for ideologues. If you're not an ideologue, you'll start asking questions and you'll start using data and they'll say, okay, we're going to do this and you'll ask a question. Well, wait a minute, that wouldn't work, would it? They can't have that. That's what an intellectual would do. So Liz Truss got in office because she was an ideologue and she was willing to use the right catchphrases, hate the right enemies, and do all the right things. That's all. That's why she got in office. It's not Liz Truss. She didn't work her way into office. She was put in office, and she wasn't put in office by anybody in England. She was put in office by the people who are 4 blocks from my office at work, Foggy Bottom. That's what put her in office. The U.S. State Department, the U.S. The White House, etc. Right? She did all the right things. She got in office. I'll tell you one of the things I think that probably really helped her. Believe it or not, she was actually in Russia, and they were asking her, she's like, I don't recognize Crimea, and they literally ask her about. I'm just going to use a term, but it's probably the right term, but you understand what I'm saying. So let's just say Belgorod or something, right? Belgorod. What is it? Belgorod is the city. So they said to her, well, would you recognize the Russians' authority over, she's like, I would never recognize the Russians' authority over Crimea. So they said, well, would you recognize the Russians' authority over Belgorod? She said, never. And somebody in her group, entourage, was like, that's part of Russia. She's like, why? Now that bit, we laughed at her. People looked at it, ha, 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 look at this idiot. But the people in power looked at her and said, that's what we want. We don't want somebody to think. We want a knee-jerk reaction. And in a way, in a twisted and paradoxical way, it was a Zen reaction. Let me explain. As a person who practices the philosophy of Zen, which there's no such thing. That's how you practice it. There's a famous saying about a Zen, there's a million Zen stories. So there's one about the Zen master's there with his student. It starts to rain and water's coming through the roof and leaking, and there's a leak. And he looks around at everybody, who's going to fix the leak. One guy jumps up and he grabs, there's a couple of leaks. One guy jumps up and he grabs a bucket, boom, he puts it right under the one of the leaks. One guy sits there and thinks about it. Yeah, this is the way it happened. And he, looked at where it was and looked around the room and he saw a bucket. He went over and got a bucket. He put the bucket under it, right? The other guy, he looked at him. He says, okay, your turn. How do you fix the leak? The other guy just jumped up, ran over. He actually grabbed a sieve, stuck it under there, and water's going through it, right? And then they went to a couple people and they say, who gets the award for today? Who doesn't have to wash dishes tonight? And he said, the guy with the sieve. And they said, but that's absurd because he jumped up, he didn't think about it, and he grabbed the sieve, and just the water hits it, it goes right through the floor. And he says, but he acted without thinking. That's what Zen is about, act without thinking. And what the Zen master was saying is, sure, when you first start acting without thinking, you'll make mistakes. But as you continue to do it, it'll get to the point where you'll make the right decision and you won't have to think about it. You will allow your mind and your brain to make the decision. But because he was willing to act without thinking, he was doing the right thing. It wasn't about fixing the leak. It was about how do you react to a problem? Do you try to calculate it or you just act without thinking? Then it's about acting without thinking. It's about making decisions, without hesitation, things of that nature, right? She did a neocon Zen kind of thing in that they said, would you recognize the authority of the Russians in? And it didn't matter what they said. They could have said red square. It didn't matter. When they said, do you recognize the authority of the Russians in? No. She didn't need to hear where it was. She acted without thinking. She knew that in the neocon empire, you do not recognize Russia's authority over anything. Let's think about this. If you want to take Russia, take over the country, steal all of their stuff, it doesn't really make sense to recognize. You don't recognize the Russian government's authority over Russia because you want to invade Russia and steal all their stuff anyway. So it would be a waste of time. Right? So at that point, when the rational world was laughing at her, saying, what an idiot, the ideologues were looking at her and saying, there we go. She's a neocon Zen meister. She knows that if you say anything, you ask her anything about Russia, the answer is Russia's bad. We don't respect them. We don't respect their authority over anything. Besides, we just want to steal them and rob them and steal all their stuff anyway. So she got there because she was an ideologue, which an ideologue presents themselves as an idiot. So she presented herself as an idiot. That's how she got the job. So why should it affect her being there? Why should she worry about getting fired for being an idiot when she got hired for being an idiot? Let's start there. But let's move forward. So she's an idiot, and well, she does what idiots do. What difference does it make what she did? Let me again, I like to use lots of parables or stories or analogies, whatever the case may be. Let me tell you how I feel about Liz Truss being there, losing her job, making errors or whatever. Here's the way I look at it. You are on the Titanic and you got a captain. He ain't a very good captain. And he slams into an iceberg. There you go. On your starboard side, there's a big gash and water's pouring in. So what do? Well, that captain really screwed up. What are we going to do? Get another captain. So they take another captain. The captain puts it in, goes hard to starboard. More water starts coming. And you're like, you idiot. You're making it worse. You take this captain out, you put another captain in. Okay, hard to port. Okay, that's a little better. You bring up your engineer and you say, how's things looking? He's going to say, what he's going to say? I don't care who the captain is. We're going to the bottom of the Atlantic within the next 3 hours. Right? So what the hell difference does it make? You're going to the bottom of the Atlantic. You can squabble over who the captain is. You can blame the first captain. Hey, that first captain hit an iceberg. You can argue that the first captain is the one that hit the iceberg. That's who has the responsibility for the condition of the ship. The ship is in a condition that it cannot stay on the surface. It's going to go to the bottom, and the people on the ship are going to perish for the most part, right? But you bring in another captain. Can you blame that captain? The damn ship already had a gash in the side. It was guaranteed to sink. You fire that captain. You know what they're going to do now? They're going to go get the guy that hit the iceberg. Hey, have you heard? Boris Johnson. They're looking at, we want Bojo. Go back to Bojo. And I'm like, God knows you people are idiots. He's the guy that hit the iceberg. He handed it to her. She came hard to starboard, made the water come in a little faster, but she ain't the one that hit the iceberg. Don't get me wrong. If she was behind the wheel, she'd have hit the iceberg, but she wasn't. So the bottom line is this. What difference does it make who you put in the captain's chair? It's a distraction. That ship is going to the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. So now they're going to bring back Bojo, I guess. Bojo, you hear that? He's in the mix. Keir Starmer, oh yeah, there's a guy that'll fix things. You only got one party. It's just like the U.S. That's the problem that the people have in the U.K. They got one party. Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, Bojo. Which one of them is going to say, look, here's the problem: the Russian sanctions. It's killing us, tearing us apart. This whole thing is tearing us apart. Who's going to say that? Nobody. They can't. And their ideologues, they have no reason to. They're not going to do it. They don't live in a world of reason and and rational thoughts, right? So therefore, a logical, rational argumentation cannot be allowed into their inner circle. If somebody in their inner circle was to stick their hand up and they were like, "Yes, Prime Minister, I have a question." Sure. Can't we just turn the Russian gas back on and all that old bullshit? Let's just settle them. Who the hell cares about Crimea, Donbass? Screw it. Sign it off. Take it, Russians. We don't want Ukraine. Bunch of Nazis anyway. We're going to chill out over here. We want some fish and chips and like a nice room temperature a pint of some bubbly, right? Great. Everybody would be happy. You know what they do with that person? They take that person to the London Bridge and toss them into the Thames River. They'd be done. They'd be like, he's a madman. Did you hear what he said? Yeah, he actually enumerated exactly what the problem is, and he gave us a clear path to resolve them. Oh, well, oh, we can't deal with that. Out of here. Over the side of the bridge, he goes, he's a dead man. And then they could get back to saying, what do we do next to fix this thing? Oh, it's a piece of cake. We'll just dot these I's and cross these T's and move a few things around. Oh, this is going to be gravy, right? Bad news for people in the UK. Trust me when I tell you this, there ain't no need to celebrate. Don't open your bottles of wine, don't pop your corks of champagne, don't make jokes about, oh, Liz Truss versus the lettuce, blah, 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 blah. I mean, those things sound good, but it plays into the distraction of the mainstream media that pretends that there ain't a hole in the ship and that the government prior to her didn't run the damn ship into an iceberg. You got 5 hours. The ship's going to the bottom. You know what? I'll say this to people in the UK. If it makes you feel good, blame her and bring back Bojo, Keir Starmer, who the hell ever, bring whoever you can. You can't bring back Jeremy Corbyn. You can't put him in power because he'd get tossed off a bridge, because Jeremy Corbyn would actually say, hey, man, it looks like this is caused by the Ukraine war and all of these Russia sanctions. We need to get rid of them. Right over the side of the bridge, London Bridge, he'd go. So that's not an option. The deep state, we've already saw his own party joined with the deep state and the opposing party to take him out. That tells you there's only one party. Sorry, bad news. There ain't two parties. What are you going to do? So within, I would say, a couple of months at the most, the British people are going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out when they can't afford food, when they can't afford heat. And I wonder about that, you know? What does an entire country do when 60, 70% of the people can't afford their heating bills? When most people can't pay it? It's system breakdown, right? What do? It's one thing. Look, if you got a company and somebody can't pay, you shut them off. Okay. You got to, like here in, I have propane for my house, and an actual big old truck actually comes out, pumps up hundreds and hundreds of gallons of tanks of, like 300 gallons. That lasts me quite a long time. These 3 big tanks behind my house, right? Sitting on a little cement platform. And trust me, it ain't cheap. And runs the furnace for a while. I can go for a long time on that, right? And if I don't pay, guess what's going to happen? You ain't getting no more gas when you get out of that. Luckily, I got a fireplace. I guess I could burn wood or something, right? Whatever. But I'm in the US at this point. I don't have to, because we can still get gas and stuff, and it's higher than normal, but it's at an affordable price. It hasn't gone through the roof yet. In England, you're talking about a country, and the rest of Europe, but you're going to be talking about a country where, what if I couldn't pay? Okay, well, they're not going to deliver. What happens if nobody can pay? You don't have anybody to deliver gas to. And you can't deliver. Your company's out of business. What does the government do when let's just go 50%. 50% of the Brits say we can't pay our gas bill, we can't pay our electric bill. Do you, as a government, do what you're supposed to do? They can't pay, they cut off. And you have a country with 50% of the people in the country and most of the businesses, no electricity, no heat. That ain't a country, my friends. That is basically, that's the equivalent of if you get in a time capsule and go back to Britain 1,000 years ago. That's what you got. You're back to the hunter-gatherer stage. The only problem is the hunter-gatherer stage won't work because there ain't nothing to hunt and nothing to gather. So now what do you have? It's purge time. People running the streets like zombies eating each other. So the bottom line is people can get excited over Liz Truss leaving and think that's a big deal. Oh, that's going to save the UK. No, nope, 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 nope. There's nothing she could have done any differently that would have. I'll put it like this. Okay, came up with this mini budget that's going to give gigantic tax cuts to the rich and some other stuff, right? And people were like, "Oh no, the pound crashed." If it don't crash this week, it's going to crash. This thing's going to fall apart. It doesn't matter when. Does it? Okay, you get a couple weeks, you get a month, 2 months, right? Max. You get 4 to 6 weeks, and then boom, your economy collapses. You're going to have hyperinflation. God knows the pound. I mean, I'm not saying those are going to happen, but you can have hyperinflation. The pound can crash. Then what happens? The crime waves beyond belief. Desperation breeds crime, my friends. So the UK is in deep and serious guana, my friends, and that's bat poop. So I know that ain't good. You don't want to be in deep and serious guana. Well, that's where they are in the UK, and they bought themselves a little bit of time. That's really what they did. They bought themselves some time. In fact, with this whole UK Liz Truss saga, they bought themselves a little time. They stick this melon head in there. She makes an absolute idiot out of herself. She makes a mockery out of herself for 44 days. They bought 44 days, man. They bought, what was his name? Anthony Scaramucci, as he said. He was in there for 11 days. They bought 4.1 Scaramucci's, right? So they got 44 days. Now they bought themselves a little more time because now people are going to be like, oh, thank God she's gone. We're going to have somebody else. And now, look, you know what they're going to do? Well, perhaps we could bring back Bojo. I mean, granted, he's the guy that slammed us into the iceberg, but I mean, he's a different face. Liz Truss is gone. Let's go with Bojo. And then people in Britain will be like, oh, yeah, Bojo, sure, let's give him a shot. He's never screwed anything up before. I'm going to tell you something. If Bojo comes back to office, I got to laugh. I got to throw my hands up in the air because at that point, it will be clear. Anybody who doesn't realize that their political system has collapsed, if Bojo comes back in office, you don't even deserve to talk. You just need to take a big piece of duct tape and put it over your mouth and don't say a word if you don't realize that you've been snookered when this clown comes back in, which he may, or Keir Starmer, whatever the case may be. As soon as you see Bojo or Keir Starmer, it should immediately trigger a nationwide strike. At that point, everybody in the country should say, nobody's going to work. We're not, this country's going to sit still until such time as we get an opportunity to vote some people in because these idiots ain't getting it done. We know where this leads. That's what the Brits should do immediately because their asses are grass. And that political machine is the lawnmower. So that's my thoughts on Liz Truss. It's a distraction. They bought 44 days, 4.1 Scaramucci's. They now they're buying a little bit more time. I guarantee you something. They're probably going to go a week or two. I'm not guaranteeing it, but let me put it like this. It wouldn't shock me if they took a couple weeks to get somebody new. Why? Because they're buying time. They're buying time. It's like when I was teaching investigation and interrogation and investigation, and you say to somebody, so were you at the crime scene? And they go, who, me? They know they were at the crime scene. And they know you're talking to them. Who, me is like one of those monikers you use to buy time. Excuse me, can you repeat that again, officer? What that means is, shit, I was there and I committed the murder and I don't know what to say, but I need to think. I got to buy some time. Who, me? You talking to me, officer? What was that again? I don't think I heard you. Anything you can say to buy time because you got to try to figure out how I'm going to stop from getting convicted of murder. There's a body laying there and I did it, right? Okay. That's all they're doing right now. In bad news, UK, you guys are the bodies. They killed you. Your economy is a body. It's laying there with a chalk outline, dead as a doornail. And you're like, hey, what's up with the body? And they're like, did you kill my body? And they're like, who me? I don't, hold on. Let me check my, oh boy, I think my mother's calling me. I'll be over here talking to Liz Truss. They're just killing time. That's all they're doing. They got 44 days, maybe a couple weeks to come up with a new schmuck. Then they can say, well, you got to give this guy at least 45 days, or girl, whoever, you penny somebody or other. You got to give this person another 44 days just to find out, whether or not they can do the job. Come on. So you got 44 days from her. You got another couple weeks to get an idiot in there, maybe a week or two. Then you got to give them 44 days before you know it. Hey, rolling blackouts are here, but don't blame the person in office. It was Liz Truss's fault. Yeah, that's the ticket. Where's Liz Truss? She's at her gated condo in Miami, but that's not important right now. Yeah, it's fair enough. She is getting paid off for her evil deeds and the fact that she stood with the neocons in DC. But you don't need to be concerned about that right now. We got to move forward to bigger and better things. We got a new version, a new iteration of Bojo, another iteration of Liz Truss in office. That's all it is. You get Bojo, right? Now, Liz Truss, you get a female Bojo. Now, Keir Starmer, you get a mannequin Bojo. They're all Bojo. You're getting the same guy, just a different version. You're getting the same policies. None of them will or can do anything that they're not ordered to do by the Biden administration. Forget it. That's it. So if you guys want any information, you want to do anything, want to change anything, you got to walk by my office at 16th and K and go make a right when you get on the 16th, straight up to the White House, talk to somebody there, because this number 10 Downing Street is a puppet palace. I think you figured that out by now. And the people in this stream has figured this out by now. Unfortunately, the people that are still running around with their blue and yellow flags, they got a little bit of time. They're going to need to make some adjustments and understand how the situation really works. So that's it on Liz Truss. That's all I got to say. What am I going to say? Oh, excuse me, the current iteration of Bojo. I wonder what the next iteration of Bojo will. It's like a ghost. It's like the Bojo died and he came back as Liz Truss. Now she's going to die and she's going to come back as Keir Starmer. Well, how long can he be in? He can't fix this crap, nor does he have any desire to. And then he'll be gone. Politically death. He'll be gone, and they'll have another iteration of Bojo. What difference does it make who they call? And people will get mad. They'll blame it. But one thing about Liz Truss, she's going to get blamed. Her 44 days are going to be the one that everything gets back to, not before those 44 days. Or Putin. Oh, it's Putin and it's Liz Truss, or whatever the case may be. And also, let me add this. They know the whole Putin thing is dying, so they need somebody stateside. So it's like, this is all Putin's fault. And the people are like, we ain't buying that anymore. Oh, okay. How about Liz Truss? Yeah, okay, we'll take that. All right, at least give me 44 days of blaming Liz Truss before we come up with the next iteration of Bojo. All righty, now we move forward. Oh, I love this. Somebody put, it's a Garland Nixon freak show. That it is. Now let's look at something. Let's have a little bit of fun and see what's going on in the real world. Let's start here. All righty. And I will go to the bottom of the page, I hope. There you go. Now I feel like I'm in charge of something. Now I'm down at the bottom. How cool is that? I'm at the bottom of the page. Perspective. Why are Haitian protesters waving Russian flags? That's interesting. Well, there's something new. Here's one. Demonstrators in Burkina Faso protest France and ECOWAS while waving Russian flags. Oh, well, let's see. Why Nigerian protesters want French army out and wave Russian flags. Look at this. Something La Russie. I guess that's Russia, right? Oh, okay. Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Haiti. Let's go here. Oh, why are protesters in Ethiopia and Mali waving Russian flags? We got Russian flags in Ethiopia and Mali. We got Russian flags in Nigeria. We got Russian flags in Burkina Faso. We got Russian flags in Haiti. Well, let's go here. Let's start on this end. The United States is invading Haiti right now. In 1914, I believe it was, or 13, the United States literally invaded Haiti, went to their gold vaults, took their gold, stole the gold reserves at gunpoint, and took them home. So I wonder why the Haitians, and right now they're being they hate the United States. The United States has been screwing them, invading them, colonizing them. They despise the United States. Russian flags. Well, let's go to Burkina Faso. You might have heard of a guy, was his name Thomas Sankara, I believe it was. I get him mixed up. And I believe he was a Burkina Faso beloved man. I always get him mixed up who was in Burkina Faso and who is in Congo, but I'm pretty sure it was Burkina Faso. So at any rate, somebody says, make your picture smaller, please. Well, that's small as I can get it, but I'm working on it. Okay, so Burkina Faso, the people there loved him. They thought he was a wonderful guy. They wanted him to be their leader. The US and the UK killed him, had him killed, kidnapped him, had him killed. Nigerian protesters. I don't know how much you know about Nigeria. I probably know a little bit more than I should. I want to do some very powerful people in Nigeria. But I can tell you this. Explain to me why Royal Dutch Shell and BP and these other, they got lots and lots of oil in Nigeria. 1% of the people benefit, the other 99% get bupkis, zilch, zero. All right. You see where I'm going here? Oh my God, Ethiopia and Mali. Have the French screwed over Mali since Hector was a pup, since, as we used to say in police, when I was a cop, since Christ was a corporal, right? I think the people in Mali have a little bit of a bone to pick with the French. Ethiopia, the U.S. is trying to overthrow them right now. The TPLF, Tigray People's Liberation Front. You know what it is? It is an ethno-fascist organization. But let's face it, whether it's the unconscionable creatures who happen to adhere to the unthinkable ideology that was popular in Germany in the 1940s, whether it's them, whether it's the ISIS people in the Middle East. Wherever it is, the U.S. empire has a habit of finding the most unthinkable, horrific, monstrous creatures on earth and arming them and training them and then trying to whitewash their evils, right? So Ethiopia, they're like, look, you're trying to get us with the TPLF. So that, what do we got? Ethiopia and Mali, again, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Haiti. What are they doing? They're all waving Russian flags. Let's talk about that. I'll tell you why I think that is. These are countries that have been screwed over by the U.S. empire or some colonialist power in the UK. And as a result of that, they're very angry and apprehensive of colonialist powers in the U.S. empire. And what's happening now is this. These countries, you know, the U.S. would just go there and say, we want your uranium, we want your gold, we want your whatever, do whatever colonial empire, we want whatever, right? Look at the Queen of England, the big thing the other day, right? She had her crown had this $500 million diamond called the something of Africa, the diamond of Africa, the crown of Africa, the whatever of Africa, right? Worth $500 million. You guess what? It wasn't in Africa. You know why? Because it got stolen from an African country, right? So bottom line is, these countries have been, you know, taken to the cleaners. I've often said this, and I've learned this. They're not poor. These African, South American countries, Haiti, they are not poor because there's something wrong with the people. They don't have the intellectual or work ethic or something like that, those types of capacities. No. They're poor for the same reason that a person walks out of a bank with a handful of money and somebody sticks a gun in their face and robs them. All of a sudden they're poor. That's the same reason that these countries are poor. And the U.S. government and the colonial powers didn't go to these countries because they're poor. They went there because they were rich and they wanted to live off of that wealth. Right now, what's France going to do? France is losing its empire. The countries in Africa that France has been taking advantage of for eons now are all kicking France out. France is losing. So what's France going to do? It's faking as it's some colonial power. It's some, you know, half-assed colonial power. But when it loses all these countries in Africa, they just rob and blind. And the people in those countries can actually get the money from the natural resources that they should be getting. France is not going to have a good time because it's living off of stolen money. The U.S. empire, people in the U.S. empire and in France and UK, etc., they think they're on a luxury liner. They're on a Jolly Roger. They're on a pirate ship. And this pirate ship has hit a reef, right? So now what's going on is this. These countries who didn't have the military or economic might to stand up to the big bully, the U.S. empire or the colonialist powers in Europe, they didn't have the economic or military might to do that. See somebody who does. So now they hate the U.S. these people do hate the U.S. with the passion of with the heat of a million suns, right? And they know the history of what the U.S. has done, etc. So what do they see? They see the U.S. an empire creep up to Russia's border and start surrounding Russia. And they see, wow, Russia's got all of these natural resources. And the U.S. does the normal, right? Brzezinski writes the grand chessboard. He's like, yeah, we should go take everything from Russia and steal all their goods. They see the neocons saying, boy, Russia, you sure got a lot of nice commodities there. It'd be a shame if somebody stole them all from you, right? So they realize that the U.S. empire and the colonialist powers went to do the same thing to Russia that's been done to them. But they didn't have the might to do it. But the Russians are like, oh, screw this. This ain't good. You want to do this? Let's go. We'll fight. They see that the Russians have built up a powerful military, that the Russians do have a nuclear deterrent, and that if the U.S. empire and the colonialist empires want to bite off a piece of that, want a piece of that fight, Russia's saying, we don't want to do it. We're going to try to avoid it, but we ain't afraid of a fight. And they see the Russians putting up one hell of a fight. In fact, they see the Russians, they are getting real news. They're getting real. They're getting real. They're getting the truth. They're not getting this bull crap that we're getting in the West. So they understand that the Russians are set, that the Russians are going to win in Ukraine, that the Russians are overpowering in Ukraine. So they're looking at this and they're saying the U.S. machine is in trouble. The only thing it has now is a narrative. It's down to, oh boy, it's a narrative. It's, what are we going to do? We'll just keep pretending like the Russians are losing. Let's just keep pretending like the Russians are losing. So here's the bottom line. These countries see Russia almost like a superhero, to be quite honest. They see them like a superhero. They see them as, this guy's been beaten up on us, and now somebody's standing up and fighting for him. And they're holding, look at this. Look at this. Let's do this again real quick. Look at this. Haiti, look at them holding that flag up. Burkina Faso, look at that. Russian flag here, Russian flag there, right? You see the fist up. These people, their spines are stiff. They're angry. They feel like they're standing up to power. Look at Nigeria. I don't know what that says, La Russie, but something about Russia. And look, these people don't have any money. They've taken a stick and some cardboard and they're writing something on it, right? Look at these people in Ethiopia, China and Russia, proudly. And look, we love you, Russia, China, right? Some of them don't even, speak English. They didn't do so good. They could use another S on Russia. But the bottom line is, I mean, that's not their native language. They're doing the best they can. I probably couldn't write it very well in Nigerian, right? But my point is, and look, there it is, something about Russia and China. They see Russia and China not as they're perfect and they're the saviors of the world and all that kind of stuff, but what they see them as, damn, there's finally somebody that can stand up to these gangsters, because that's what the UK, that's what the colonial powers have been to these people. They have been gangsters, mobsters, robbing them blind. And from their perspective, so what you have now is a very interesting dynamic in this world. We had, I believe it was Madagascar recently, where they're at the United Nations, their foreign services representative, foreign minister, whoever it was, voted in favor of the resolution to condemn Russia. He went home and they fired his ass on the spot and said, you do not represent the people of this country, you're fired. Now, he'll probably end up in Miami. I guarantee he knew he was going to get fired when he got home, but I guarantee he was paid off. He probably got suitcases full of money from the U.S. Suitcases full of our tax dollars went there. They just wanted his vote they give him any amount of money, right? Bottom line is, though, when he went home, he was fired. Why? All throughout Africa. I tell you what you do. Go to like the Tanzania Times. Start going to the various actual, now there's some fake ones. There's some fake Africa news networks that are really just Western propaganda. But you go to the actual newspaper. There's plenty of English ones like Tanzania.net, Tanzania Times. There's plenty of them, right? And what you'll find is they don't have no problem with Russia. They're not angry with Russia. They see Russia and China as a path to a new world order, a world order where they can sell their own stuff and keep their own money in their country. You got countries that, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that all of their stuff, their uranium, things like that, their gold, their diamonds are being sold, these people would be great, wealthy countries. We're like, yes, they're the developing countries, they're third world countries. They shouldn't be. Why are they developing third world countries? Because they don't have any money, but they got the resources, but we're taking it. So they look at Russia and China and they say, we have an opportunity. We don't know what they're doing, but we're doing business right now with them and we're doing okay. The US doesn't want us to do business with them. We want to do business with them. We sure as damn hell don't want to do business with the United States. So you have a new world order not arising. It has already risen. These people aren't scratching their heads saying, I wonder if we should lean in the direction of Russia. What do you think we should do when it comes to this Ukraine thing? I don't know. How about you? They ain't doing that. They have made up their minds and they ain't going to change them. They've been sitting on the side. And see, the US thought, well, all of these states and, where we have puppets leading them and all these things, once we get this war going, we will say to these countries in Africa and South America, okay, join us against Russia. And they will quiver and they will poop their pants and they will be frightened and they will say, yes, I will. Yes, master, because I'm afraid that you'll destroy me. It's the opposite. It went in the other direction. They looked up and they said, maybe we can finally get our day in court. And they said, so what we're going to do is we're going to go with these other people in the hopes that they win. It's the only chance we got. Because if we stay with you bastards, all you're going to do is keep robbing us and overthrowing our governments. And every time we get a leader that we like, you'll assassinate him. No more of that. We're tired of that. Don't tell us that the Russians and Chinese are bad. We'll make that decision. We don't need you to do that. And we've made a decision that you're bad. We don't want you. That's where we are right now, I believe, when it comes to world affairs. Let me tell you what. I remember last time I was in Venezuela, right? And I was covering an event in Caracas, and there were people there, and I had my my Sputnik ID. I've got a Sputnik ID. I got a Pacifica ID, and I was there, and I'm like, okay, I'm covering it for Sputnik. And they said, oh, some of them spoke, most of them spoke Spanish, a few of them spoke English, but a lot of the people, there were people from all over the South America, really all over the world at the one event I went to. And I was like, oh, yeah, they're like, where are you from? Now, if you're in the US and you say I'm covering something for Sputnik, they're like, oh, no, they pull out a cross like you're a vampire, right? Which I could give a crap. But I'm there and I'm like, they're like, oh, they're trying to, with me not speaking Spanish, say, where are you from? What are you doing here? And I said, I'm with Sputnik. And they went, and people started taking out their phones and pointing to it. Look, right? And you know what they were pointing to? The Sputnik app. They were pointing to the RT app. They had RT Spanish, and you know what I mean? They wanted to show me, and all of them, like everybody there. And I'm like, wow, everybody wants to show me, hey, I got Sputnik. I listen to Sputnik. I watch Sputnik. I read Sputnik. That I came to realize that Russia was very popular in South America, and so the bottom line is this: you kind of get brainwashed in the West and you don't realize that these countries have long-standing ties and friendships with Russia and now building them with China. In the past, they didn't with China because China was, it was a very, very poor country. It was poorer than Haiti. And it didn't have the emissaries going around the world. It couldn't provide money to help them fight imperialism, blah, blah, blah. The Russians, the Soviets, before the Russians, the Soviets were providing weapons and training and money to people in Africa to fight back against apartheid, to fight back against imperialism, things of that nature, right? The Cubans, the Nicaraguans. How do you think the Sandinistas defeated the Contras? They got heavily armed by the Soviets. So they haven't forgotten that, even though you could argue it was part of a proxy war, that they were able, a lot of them, to get some level of freedom, or at least to be able to stand up and fight, because historically the Soviet Union, the Russians were there providing them some level of assistance, right? So they've got a long history with Russia. But of course, here in the last 30 years or so, 25, 30 years, The US was so much more powerful than everybody that they just accepted the reality that, there's nothing we can do. The US is too powerful. But now they see a way out. Now they see hey, man, there's a chance we may be able to escape. And whatever percentage that chance is. I was a big Star Trek fan, the original Star Trek. And you remember, if you ever watched the original Star Trek, one of the things you would see was this: some creatures from another planet or whatever the hell, there's some other ship, they're attacking the Enterprise, and the captain would say to Spock, his first mate, he'd say, "Spock, I've got a plan. We'll do this, 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 and we'll come around and we'll do this, and we'll blah 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 blah, whatever it is. We'll hide behind that planet. We'll jump out. We'll use the gravitational field of that planet to whip us to light speed, to warp speed, and then we'll be gone, or whatever the hell, right?" Okay. And Spock would say something to the effect, "But Captain, according to my calculations, your plan only has a 14.372% chance of working." And the captain would say, "You got a better plan, Spock?" And Spock would go, "Helm, let's go behind the planet." Well, you know what I mean? It was like, hey, these other ships are going to blow us up. And we got a plan. We got no plan and we get blown up, or we got a plan with a 14.62537% chance of working. Guess what? We're going with the 14%. It's better than nothing, right? Okay, bottom line. I think not that those percentages would apply here, but I think that it's these countries around the world saying, okay, all right, what do we have? We have the US. They're going to rob us. And the other empires, they're going to steal all of our stuff. They're going to impoverish us. If we say anything, they'll bomb us and tell us they're fighting terrorism. And then if we actually find somebody to run the country that we like, they'll overthrow them, assassinate them, and put in another puppet, right? That's that's option A. Option B is the Russians win. The Chinese the Russians and Chinese get stronger. We align with the Russians and we get some kind of, at least the hell, they'll build us some airports, roads, and train stations, right? We're going to go with the airports, roads, and train stations. It's whatever percentage chance of it is. It beats staying where we are, because we have been getting screwed for the last century or two, and that's where they are. And now they are literally when you see the pride. Let me show you this. I want us. Let's not just look. Let's not just look at the pictures of them. Let's look at this. Look at this guy's face. The pride, right? Look at, they're holding it up, right? They're proud of what they're doing. Look at his hands are up in the air. The other guy here, let me find it here. Look at this guy. He looks like he's got a whistle or something, and he's got his fist up in the air. There's another Russian flag over here. There's another Russian flag over here. These people are proud. They're angry. They feel as though they got an opportunity to fight back. And let me say this. And this is, who knows, maybe controversial. Who could, you know what? I don't care yet. I don't care. I could care less. If you look at it, what else do these people have in common? What else do they have in common? Let's be honest. What do those people look like? What do those people look like? What do those people look like? What else do they have in common? They're black as coal. They are They are black people. They are black Africans. Even the Haitians are Africans who were taken from Africa, moved to Haiti, right? They look at them. They don't look like me. I'm in the United States. Why? Because we got all mixed up. My grandmother was Creole. You know, we were all mixed up with French. And when I do my whatever it is, my DNA stuff, man, there's people. Everybody, there's people on the moon. Yeah, it's like, let's see, you got 2% Congo, 4% Western Europe, 7% Martian, 3% Venusian. What the hell, right? I don't know. I'm from all over the place. That ain't these people. They're Africans, and the ones in Haitians are Africans. They're not mixed up. They're African people, right? And the Europeans, if we're honest about it, the European colonists didn't see them as equals. In fact, let me add this. I'm not going to search it up, but I saw a video, and a lot of you might have saw it, where there was a South African, like foreign minister, whatever the hell, right? And he was talking, and he said, the Russians treat us as equals. It's the first time I've dealt with, I forgot how he puts it, Westerners, whatever you call it, right? That treat us as equals. The U.S. and the European leaders, I'm not talking about the people of the Europe or the people of U.S. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about the leadership, the corporate people, etc. Don't treat them as equals. They treat them as somebody who happens to be in the way of the natural resources that they want to steal. And they're not stupid. And they're like, they're screwing us over. They're throwing us aside. They're just saying, let's get these black folks out the way so we can steal their shit. And the same, it ain't just black. Go to South America. You got a bunch of indigenous people, same thing. Oh, you little short indigenous bastards, get the hell out of the way. We want that lithium. They're not stupid. And what's interesting about this, and this is an interesting thing, should black people worldwide, here's a question, make Russians honorary black people? Possibly. But then you have to make Chinese honorary black people. So never mind, that doesn't work. They're on. Let me put it to you like this. The Europeans just don't see, the truth is, they just don't see the European leadership. Remember, I'm not talking about the people. The leadership don't see these people in Africa that are waving these Russian flags as people who deserve some level of respect and have a right to their own resources. For whatever reason, the Russians do. But let's go one further with that. Do the Europeans see the European leadership? The European, I don't blame the European people, because a lot of European people don't like Russians because they've been so propagandized. The Russians are evil, blah, 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 right? The Russians are Slavic people. Do these neoliberals, does this vicious criminal ruling elite in Europe and the United States, do they see the Slavic people and the Russians as their equals? No, they want to do exactly the same damn thing that they to them that they're doing to the people in Africa, that they're doing to people that they've been doing to the people in Asia. Remember French Indochina? That they're doing to the people, they've been doing to the people in South America. The South American people are getting out from under it. They're like, hey, the Russians, let's see, you guys have a lot of natural resources too, don't you? Yeah, kind of like the brown people in South America and the black people in Africa. Yeah, a lot of nice natural resources there, Slavic people. And since you are not as good as we are, I think we have a right to appropriate them. I mean, people don't talk about this a lot, but you know me, I don't give a shit. There's no closed door. I'll talk about everything. The European ruling elite, to me, from my estimation, sees the Russian Slavic people like they see the African people, as lessers and as people who are just in the way of their natural resources, and they want to treat them the same way. What's the difference? What do they do to the Congo? What do they do to all these other countries, South Africa, all these other countries? What have they done to them over the course of the years? Stole their stuff. And it's no different with Russia. They're like, Putin's evil. They don't care about that stuff. They could care less. There's a bunch of Slavic people and they're on our land that has oil and gas and timber and all these other things that we want. They need to be poor, because let's face it, what do they want to do? They want to extract the natural resources out of Russia to divide them amongst themselves, and the Russian people get nothing, which is what they do in Nigeria and Mali and Haiti, all these other countries. Haiti, gold mines in Haiti. The oil, gas, all that stuff. But why is Haiti so poor when they got all of these minerals and natural resources? Why? Because it's being stolen from them. That's where they want to do Russia. Russia's a large country. Russia's been able to utilize this wealth to build a significant economic and military foundation. And guess what? They ain't able to do it. And guess what? The people in Africa and Asia and South America are able to understand exactly what I'm saying. It far better. See, I haven't lived their experience. They understand it far better than I do. So they're looking at Russia and they're saying, go for it, brother. We're behind you. And what do you want to bet this? What do you want to bet this? What do you think would happen? Keep in mind, the Africans remember that when these, Rhodesia, what was Rhodesia? It was named after Cecil Rhodes. It was an apartheid country, right? The Africans remember that they had to live through brutal apartheid and that the Soviets came in and helped them out of it. What do you want to bet? Ask anybody, ask yourself this question. If the Russians were to say, look, we're at war with the US empire and the colonial powers, what we'd like to do, we need another 1 million or 2 people. Africa, South America, the Middle East. Are there any volunteers? Anybody who wants to volunteer to fight in the Russian army, to fight against the United States, to fight against the colonial powers of Europe, you can volunteer. First of all, how many Muslims would they get from the Middle East that would say, I've been waiting all my life to get my hands on them sons of bitches? You give me a gun and you point me in the direction of these people. Let's do it. And you're going to give me air cover and all this kind of stuff too. Let's go. Do you know how many Africans that would say, yeah, they've oppressed the hell of our people for I don't know how many years. Sign me up. South America? Are you kidding me? How many South Americans would say, how quick can I get to Russia? Put a uniform on, train me. They would literally, like I said, you think there'd be any Iraqis? You think there'd be any Afghans, Libyans, Syrians? Do you think any of them would say, sign me up? Do you think there'd be any Palestinians that would say, sign me up? Do you think any of them would say, I finally get a chance to be in an army and fight against the US? Oh, it would be the world. It would be an army of the global South. It would be an army with, I'll put it, I will guarantee you this, there would be millions of Africans. There would be millions of Middle Easterners. There would be millions of South Americans that would happily pick up a gun, get in a tank, whatever they needed to do, drive a truck, whatever they needed to do on supply lines, that would be happy to join that fight. I damn guarantee you there would be ready to get that they've been waiting generations to get a piece of the United States or France or the UK's ass. I will bet. Anybody think? I'm looking at my chat. Anybody think I'm wrong? Somebody says you spazzing out of control, Garland. Preach, brother. That's right. I'm losing it. But everybody knows that. I have a guy that I have on my radio show regularly. He's a Palestinian. Man, those people ain't happy. They've been screwed for no reason. And they're just itching. They are itching for a fight. Tell you that right now. So here's the reality. I mean, soon as they said to the Muslim world, do you want to go fight the US? They wouldn't have room for anybody else. They would be turning people away. It would be the biggest armory, and it would be millions. I'm telling you right now, there would be millions of people from all over the world who have been screwed. That's the problem with screwing everybody. You make so many enemies. And now they're flying Russian flags, and that ain't going to change. In fact, it's only going to get more powerful. So what you now have is a new order where you have people who have been mistreated and oppressed by the US and the UK saying, great, I can finally be comfortable to stand up and say, I hate these bastards. And here is a flag of a country. To them, to fly the Russian flag and the Chinese flag or whatever, to them, it is symbolic to them. It's a symbol that we back anyone who's fighting the US and the colonial powers. That's what the symbol is. And now it happens to be Russia. Got your back. Imagine some kid beats you up every day. He takes your lunch money. And one day you look and there's a guy standing there saying, no, I'm not giving you my lunch money. And everybody stops and looks. Whoa. He's told, and the bully says, I'll kick your ass. He says, well, you're going to have to kick my ass. Let's go. Let's dance, brother. Let's dance. You ain't getting this lunch money, but we're going to fight. You want to fight? Let's fight. We'll do it. And they commence to throwing down, right? They head off to Knuckle Junction, right? Guess what? The people who've lost their lunch money to that guy every day for the last, 3 semesters are all going to gather around. And some of them may be quiet, but if they see this guy starting to win, they're going to get a little bit louder and a little bit louder, and they're going to be, yeah, kick his ass. Woohoo. They're all going to be celebrating this person. And if this guy's able to do it for the next day, they'll be carrying him around school singing for he's the jolly good fellow. He will be a hero because they will feel as though he stood up to the bully where the bully is good. Ding dong, the witch is dead. You took the witch out. Right. And when he's fighting the bully, they see that as their opportunity. So these people are living vicariously through the Russians. And I'm going to tell you what, if the Russians ever opened up, and there's another thing, let me throw this out there too. Would be interesting. If I were the leader of Russia, if I were the leader of Russia, just thinking about this, I might do that somewhat. Not because I need to. Look, the Russians have a Russian army, right? But the U.S. plays a information war, right? If I were the Russians, now think about this. About a third of the people in the United States now are either Black people or Latino people, right? And they're just getting poured with propaganda about how evil Russia is day and night, right? Okay. If I'm Russia, I might say to the Africans, I might say to the South Americans, Do we have any volunteers? Of course, you get major volunteers. I would put together some large groups, battalions, whatever, and it would be like the battalion, the Congolese battalion, and I'd name them the top. Look, the listen to this. I would put together a I go to Burkina Faso. We got any volunteers? Yeah, God knows you get a lot of them, but let's just say we take 10,000. I'd say, and I'm going to use the word battalion. I don't know how many people, division, whatever the hell, right? The Burkina Faso division, I'd name it the Thomas Sankara division. 103rd, whatever day, how they use 103rd, whatever. It would be called the Thomas Sankara division, named for the guy that the West killed. Congo, right? I'd name it the Patrice Lumumba division, named for the guy that the US screwed. I would do also Ghana. I'd name it the Kwame Nkrumah division, right? I would do one from South America. I would call it the Che Guevara. You see where I'm going? Division. If I were the Russians, I would put together some divisions or battalions, however many people I could put together, right? But I would have people. Now, I wouldn't necessarily throw them to the front lines. I might have them, some might want to go to the front lines. And if they were, experienced and good soldiers, I might. I'd put some of them in maybe running, what do you call it? Supply lines, doing various and sundry things. But they would be at the forefront of my PR offensive. At the forefront, you'd see all these people, black as coal, Haitians, you name it, right? And I'd name it. What is the guy's name that freed Haiti? Toulouse Lassant or something, whatever. I'd name that'd be the division. I'd name that from Haiti, or whatever, how many Haitians I could get, right? I'd name that. Can you imagine the Haiti after what the U.S. is doing to Haiti? If they were to say, "Hey, man, would you like to join the Russian army and fight the U.S.?" There'd be no Haitians left. They'd all join, right? But I named that to Toulouse. So I would have a division, and I would specifically name those divisions after people who were assassinated, heroes of that who were assassinated, and that's what it would be named. Now, it would have an added PR effect of having an effect in the United States, because look, like I said, U.S. is about third black and Latino. What happens now when all these black people look and there's pictures? Look at that. Those friggin' people. Look at all of those Russian soldiers. They're black. What's up with that? Then they go online and they find out. The Latino people, hey, look at all of those Russian soldiers. My God, the Che Guevara division, and they're all, I guess they'd have red bandanas or something. What are they, red berets like him? But the Che Guevara division, yeah, what do you know? Jeez. They all volunteered to go fight. You see what I'm saying? What a great PR move that would be. Put 2,000 in each one. If you just put 2,000 in the Che Guevara division, or whatever it is, battalion division. I don't know how those things work. I've never been in the army. To Che Guevara, Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, on and on and on, from the various countries, each representing, each of those named after and representing someone who was martyred on behalf of that particular group of people by the United States, the UK, France, etc. Can you imagine? See, they should let me run their PR machine, which I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not Russian. I have no right to go to Russia. I'm going to go to Russia and run anything. I'm not Russian. You know what I mean? I'm here. But you get my point. That would be a hell of a PR move, right? But and understanding the Russian, I've been studying Russian for a long time. Understanding the Russian culture like I do, that ain't how they think, to be quite frank. The Russians, they're not big on the info wars. They're not big on the public relations stuff, right? Those guys, they're going to have tanks, and they're going to go in and they're going to fight it out, and they're going to slug it out in the mud. The Russians don't mind a fight. They don't, that's the thing about war. The Russians do not mind a bloody fight. I mean, they don't want to do it. They try to avoid it. But if you got a bloody fight, a lot of people don't want to. Americans don't want to do that. They will if they have to. The Russians will go. They will get on the battlefield, and they'll slug it out in the ugliest kind of way. And so really, they don't need help. And the Russian culture is not one to think about all of these PR info war things kind of like that I'm bringing up. The Russian culture is more to say, this is what we need to do. Let's do it. We need to fight a war. Let's go fight the war, and we'll win the war. And that's that. And my ideas, I think, are brilliant. Personally, I think that is a brilliant PR move, but that I don't think that's the way the Russians do things. It would be interesting if they did, because the other thing it would do is this. Again, it would emphasize in the I mean, in an unbelievable manner, it would emphasize what they're saying, that this is a war against the West. Remember that a speech that Putin had? He did a speech, because I read all of his speeches. I mean, if Blinken, I shared it online. Blinken gave a speech the other day. I shared it at Stanford, right? I read it. Putin gives a speech. I read it. These leaders give speeches. I read them. It's very important to read these things and understand what they're saying. And I lost my place. I was just saying that Putin gave a speech the other day. Oh, and he talked about, this is not just Russia against Ukraine. This is the West. This is this monstrous empire, the empire of lies, as he called it, that they're fighting against, right? This would put an exclamation mark behind that it's not just Russia against them. That is the oppressed people. He's basically saying, kind of said, we stand up for the oppressed people around the world that are getting screwed over by these people. Well, what do? You open the door to them. Anybody want to fight? Well, first of all, if they said, hey, anybody want to fight against the U.S. in Africa, or the Muslim community, or the Middle East, say maybe in South America, if they said that, they better get the hell out of the way of that door, because they would be trampled by the number of people. Yeah, I mean, this metaphorical door, you open it, woof, it's going to be trampled by the number of people coming in. And then, as I said, you name it. So that we'd have let's think about it. So I'm going to name them: the Che Guevara Division, Kwame Nkrumah Division, or Battalion. How about that? The Thomas Sankara Battalion, and what was the one I missed? Patrice Lumumba Battalion. That's what you'd have. Boom. Okay, we got them. And I'm sure, guess what you do for the Middle East? You come up with someone that was martyred by the, the U.S. empire in the Middle East, and you name them. I don't know, whatever. And boom, there you got it. You got your PR machine, and you have those people. You don't throw them out in the front lines. You have them doing something, or whatever the case may be. And if it's 2,000 each, 2,000 in each group, boom. But they are at the forefront of your PR offensive. And every day you have, like, you're releasing videos, and you're showing, these are the brave men of the Thomas Sankara Division, as they load supplies to go as they drive through the roads of difficult and dangerous roads to bring things to the men on the front lines. You'd have some of them might be on the front lines. Guess what? You have some of them as and which you have some of them in doing your movie filming and things like that. You got your films going, and now the brave men of the Che Guevara Division come to whatever, Kherson. Boom, and there's all these Latino guys marching around with Russian flags on, and like a Che Guevara Division on their thing. Think about that. That'd be very interesting PR, and it would make a point, and it would. And what the only problem the Russians would have is they'd have like every day there'd be flight after flight coming into Moscow from all over the world, from all of these people saying, hey, I'm here, sign me up, can I get a uniform and a gun, and point me at those colonialist bastards so I can get mine. It's time for me to get mine. They got theirs for the last 500 years. I'm getting mine. And I say all that, let me say this, because I don't want anybody to get me wrong. What I don't want people to think is that Garland Nixon's like, oh, yes, this is about white and black. It isn't. It isn't, because there's a collapse of culture here, but it's not the collapse of the American culture, and it's not the collapse of the European culture. It's the collapse of the culture of the ruling elite of the West, a ruling elite that has dragged the people through the mud, that have dragged the people. Look, the people of the United States, the people of Europe are like anybody else. They want to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever the case may be, right? They want to have some kids. They want to have a home. They want to drink some wine, or smoke some weed, or eat some seafood, or whatever. They're vegetarian, eat whatever the hell they are eating. They want to wander around on a sunny day. They want to go skiing. They want to play ball with their kids. They want to play soccer or football or whatever, right? They just want to live their damn lives and enjoy it. They want a decent job. They want health care, things of that nature. That's all people want. The European people don't want to go choke out every African person. They just want to live their lives. They want the African people to live their lives too, right? And a lot of times I think what gets misinterpreted is when a lot of Europe, don't get me wrong, there's racism everywhere, but a lot of Europeans are like, well, geez, how come all these people are coming from different countries? They're a little upset with the issue of immigration, right? Now, as I said, there's people that are racist everywhere in the world, certainly. But there are a lot of people that are just like, man, you're bringing more people in there. We only got but so many jobs. It's going to cost us. Then you got people, all these other people coming in desperate. You're going to drive the wages down and they're going to get less. I mean, they have legitimate concerns about their own well-being. And the reality is the only damn reason, it's not the fault of those people that they're there. It's not the fault of the European people that went there. It's because the United States and it's the US empire has gone to these countries and destabilized their damn countries, blowing their countries up. The government's falling out. These bastards are wandering, or impoverished them by stealing their gold or whatever. Now they're wandering around doing what you do. They're looking for a better life. And now the people in those countries are getting screwed because more people are coming and their wages are going down and they're struggling and they're like, more people coming in. This is upsetting to us. We had our way of life and our way of doing things, and there's a whole bunch of new people and we're not comfortable with it, right? Doesn't make them evil. Doesn't make them evil. It makes them, again, victims of the same ruling elite culture as the people who are coming into those countries. And ultimately what you have is this: everybody's pissed. And now the ruling elite has dragged their ass down a dark alley, and now they're going to leave them to suffer and starve and freeze. And I suspect that ain't going to go over well with the European people. So at any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. Let's see, before we go any further, I'm going to take a look at the super chats because I saw super chats, and let's get here. Let's check it out. Praying Man, it says, is there still left wing and right wing, or is it just AUKUS and bricks? Well, left wing and right wing exists, right? But here's what I mean. This is something I talk about. When somebody uses a term, what do they mean? When I say something's left wing, that left wing is just a word. It's just a sound. It's just a symbol. It's a description. As I always say, instead of left wing, we could all agree that when you say it means whatever that is. It's just a sound. The sound could be left wing. That's a sound. Or it could be and now we refer to whatever. Now, what has happened is left wing now in neoliberal land, a person who hates organized labor, that's traditional left, isn't it? A person who is very concerned and fearful and distrusting of corporate power and of concentrated power, right? That's normal left. Now people who are pro-corporate, or they call themselves the left. People who go against everything that the traditional left goes in are now called the left. Here's the question I have to ask you. If Joe Biden and Keir Starmer and these neoliberals that don't believe in anything a lefty might like me believes in, if they're the left, then what am I? You see, the traditional left still exists. So if we rename these neoliberal bastards as the left, which is what the media has done, then what happens to the people that were left, are still left, and haven't changed their ideologies? You're taking the term left wing and you're applying it to people who do not adhere to any left wing ideologies. But what the hell happens to the people that still adhere to those ideologies? They're like, I'm left. I've always been left. Okay, we decided now that guy over there is left. The guy that hates your guts, yeah, he's the left now. Where does that leave us? Now that they've redefined the left as these crazy bastards, as the ultra liberal fascists are now considered the left. There ain't nothing left about them. The fact is they're not left and they're not right. Fascism borrows rhetoric from the left, borrows rhetoric from the right. Fascism borrows all rhetoric because fascism doesn't care. I say the ultra liberals are just another variety of fascism, and they're borrowing the rhetoric from the left and borrowing the rhetoric from the right, and they're borrowing various rhetorics, but they ain't neither. They're fascists. How about we go that route? All righty. Oh, lots of great comments. We're going to find another super chat, or maybe we won't, Yes, we will. How about we say thank you to Brian Berner? Certainly appreciate that. How about Black in the Empire says all facts. Thanks, Black in the Empire. And we're looking. because it is possible. It is. Oh, another super chat. I'm going to have to get better at this. A super sticker from Thao3465. Thanks a lot, Thao3465. Wow, 1,400 people, huh? Alexander McCourse is looking like a prophet right now. Oh, he really is. He really is. He said what was, but he knows British politics very, very well, very well. And he is a prophet. Great job at enlightening the people. Many thanks to you, says Illuminated Best Choice. All right. And we got Basil Bashkov. Thanks a lot for the help there. That's awesome. How about we go to say, oh, salty Texas trucker, a regular. Putin said strong central government can quickly adopt a rapidly changing world. We undo everything every 4 years. Please expand. Well, you're right. And I've talked about this before. The countries that the U.S. hates are countries with a strong central government, because a strong central government tends to be accountable to the people and look out for the people. More so, and at minimum, a strong central government tends to have some level of nationalism, often sometimes a healthy nationalism. People say nationalism is evil. It's not evil, and it's not good. It depends on what kind of nationalism. And a strong central government is going to give you a healthy nationalism and an independent, sovereign perspective. And man, the U.S. empire don't like that. Not a bit. So thank you. Exactly. A strong central government can quickly adapt to a rapidly changing world, because remember, a strong central government is looking out for the best interests of the people in that country. And it's going to make adjustments, but it's going to make adjustments on behalf of the people that it believes that it's accountable to, which are the people in that country. Oh, gosh. All right. Thank you, Charito Munoz in Praying Mantis. It's Wittgenstein's language, games for the ruling elite. Exactly. Separate yourself. When I say these people are a certain way, we're talking about a ruling elite class. All right, let's look over here. We got a couple people. Username. Thanks a lot, username. Username. That's a cool username, isn't it? Username. JVB says on point again. Username. Thanks a lot, username. And we go to you have a good point. Says, I saw reports of white fighters being used over Donetsk by Ukraine. They're Nazis. They'll use anything they can. There are no rules. How about this? You've got a good point. Says, today on RT, Ukraine has a nuclear bomb primed in Mykolaiv, which it will detonate and then blame on Russia, so that the U.S. has a justification for getting directly involved in the war and launching missiles on Russia. Who knows? But if they do, that's going to be a bad situation. Username, says a tip. So we'll see. I tend to think a couple of things. Something interesting. Let me throw this out. Barack Obama the other day was saying, he was on Pod Save America or whatever. And on there, he said, oh, no. We're going to be very careful. I'm paraphrasing. We're not going to get involved in a war with Russia. I understand something. Barack Obama in American politics, in the neoliberal world, is still a very powerful person. Not powerful because he wields the power, powerful because he speaks for power. He's a conduit for power. So when Barack Obama says that, there's very powerful people speaking through Barack Obama. But remember, how many times have we heard Stoltenberg say, no. We ain't going to directly get in a war with Russia. We've heard this from Germany. Why? Because I believe the puppet handlers, see, you got the puppets and the puppet handlers. I believe that the puppet handlers are saying, okay, you can do whatever you want, but I like having my big yacht. I like having my visits to Epstein Island, whatever iteration that is now, because it probably still exists in some fashion. I like doing all these things I do because I'm super rich. If you nuke everything, I won't be able to do it anymore, because I'll probably be dead. And if I'm not dead, I'll be stuck in a friggin' bunker until the day I die, which ain't going to be all that long from now. So you got an open hand. Just don't get in a war with Russia. So I believe that the message we're getting is they ain't going to get in a war with Russia. So a lot of people think they will. I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I could be wrong. But I think the ruling elite doesn't want to die. Now, there may be crazies there and neocons that are like, but I think neocons don't want to die either. But I think the ruling elite class is giving them but so much rope on their chain and saying, I'll yank back here. Don't you do it. Don't you get involved with it, because I will die. You see Elon Musk now starting to get cold feet. Whoa, back up. I don't like this. I don't want World War III, because he knows he loses everything. What's going to happen? China gets in it. You're Elon Musk. You're building all this stuff in China. What's going to happen? You got factories in Europe. They're going to get blown to smithereens. All your main stuff is in China. That's done. You're out of business. You're a billionaire. You're out of business. The billionaires don't want to go out of business, particularly through bottom line is there's no difference between me and Elon Musk, between a homeless guy and Elon Musk. If the missiles hit, we're all the same at that point, dead. And Musk knows it, and the billionaires know that. And so what's interesting is you're starting to see some things in the news too that you didn't see before. I was looking at some articles today, and there's starting to be more and more articles that they're allowing in the mainstream media. The fact that they're allowing them in the mainstream media that says, hey, maybe we need to talk about some kind of a negotiated end. Now, keep in mind, why the hell would the Russians negotiate with these people? I think the Russians are going to win it and say, okay, we'll negotiate after we win. When you're laying on the ground begging for mercy, that's when I will negotiate. I think the Russians know that time is on their side, particularly going into the winter. And they know that, look, first of all, if I'm Russia, I don't have to fight the Europe. All I got to do is wait another month or two. It'll tear itself to pieces, right? They don't have to fight the UK. They don't. Look at France. Does Russia have to fight France right now? No need to. France looks like a war zone. They know that they don't need to do anything to the EU. The EU has swallowed a economic suicide pill. It's Jonestown, and they're all economic Jonestown, and they're all drinking poison Kool-Aid. Russia has no reason to fight the EU. All Russia has to do is get some popcorn and sodas and sit there and look out the window, and they will watch the people from the EU tear the European continent apart brick by brick. That's what's about to happen. So why do the Russians need to go to war with them? All they need to do is do what they're doing. In fact, a lot of people think the Russians are about to do some big offensive. They may do a big offensive, but they might slow things down. Look, let's not forget they're kind of doing that von Clausewitz thing, right? What are they doing? They're not trying to take, the people are like, oh, maybe they'll give up Kherson. They ain't trying to take property. They're trying to wipe out the enemy. So what happens? You get them to attack Kherson, you kill a bunch of your enemy. You back up, they come in Kherson, you kill a bunch of your enemy. You move forward, you kill some more of your enemy. Why? Because their goal is not underneath them. Their goal is not the ground underneath them. Their goal is not to take Kherson or Liman or any of those things. Their goal is to wipe out the people, the other army. And as long as they're wiping out the other army, they're moving closer towards their goal. And it's like, you guys keep attacking, and we'll keep wiping you out and blowing up your stuff until there's nobody left to attack, to wipe out, and no more stuff left to blow up. So as these suicide missions that the Ukrainians are doing, throwing all of their men and equipment at the Russians are sitting back there saying, you must have read von Clausewitz too. Only you read it wrong. What? We'll sit here. Come on in. The artillery's fine. It's sad. Now, don't get me wrong. I make jest of everything in life. That's just who I am. But in reality, it's a terrible thing. I don't want to see all these Ukrainian people get killed. I don't want to see anybody get killed. Families, people uprooted. It's a bad situation. But it is what it is. I'm going to call it like I see it. And the West, realistically, from a strategic perspective, is playing right into the hands of Russian military strategy that they've been doing for centuries. And the Russian military strategy is what? We want to destroy armies, not cities. And what are they doing? So I can feign and back up and let you think you took a city. Why? Because I want to I want to destroy your army and your equipment. Then I'll move forward, then I'll back up. Yay, we took another city, but we lost 10,000 men. And we're going to be like, yep. Let's see how many times you can pull that off before you run out of men. Well, we'll move forward and take the city. Oh, you're coming again? Let me back up again. 10,000 more men. Well, they'll move forward. Well, I'll keep going, moving my military back and forth and baiting you into attacking. And then I'll retreat, move up, bait you in attack and retreat. So I can, until you, at some point, you run out of guys. And then I'm like, all right, I don't have to take this land. There's nobody to defend it. While I'm here, maybe I'll sit down and have a brew. And I think that's the direction of Russia. It won't shock me if that's the directions the Russians go. This whole Kherson thing, I guess I've already gone damn near an hour and a half, so I might as well keep going for a little while. This whole Kherson thing, people are like, hey, the Russians or the general, whatever his name is, Sir something or other, is saying, yes, if we have to, we may back up, give up Kherson. And people are like, oh my God, don't give up Kherson. If he gives up Kherson, I mean, that'll be such a victory for the Ukrainians, blah, blah, blah. I think he's baiting them in. Personally, I think it's a setup. I think he wants them to come in and attack. Yeah, whatever you do, my God, if you were to throw me, the infamous Jungle Book or whatever it was with Brer Rabbit, don't throw me in that briar patch. The guy throws him in the briar patch, which is exactly where he wanted to be, and off he runs because he's now right. Whatever you do, if I'm there, if I'm like in control of the Ukrainian army and they're like, oh God, I don't know if we can hold Kherson. Whatever you do, I hope they don't attack Kherson, because if they attack Kherson, we'll just have to back up and give them Kherson. And I know you want Kherson bad. I know that you want a major victory. And you're like, I'm getting buzz everywhere. We want to take Kherson. How can we take Kherson? Got to get Kherson, right? And I'll be like, yeah, well, if you guys try to take Kherson, I guess we'll go away and give it to you. Yes, sirree. You're going to get a big victory beforehand, before the midterms. I sure hope you don't attack Kherson. You know what I'm setting you up? Boy, do I want you to attack Kherson. And I'm setting up for a slaughter. I got everything set. I got missiles. I got artillery. I got bombers. I am ready. And I'm going to be like, yes, sirree, please don't do it. And when you attack it, I am going on your ass and carpet bombing your troops. You name it. And boom, you'll lose as many troops as, and I might back up and let you come in and cut your supply lines off and surround you, smash you some more. I would think that the Russians are thinking something like that. You want Kherson? All right, come get it. Here it is, right here. Look, how easy is it? It's sitting right in front of you. Just reach over there and take it. And then when you reach over there and take it, you're going to realize that you stepped on a landmine, that it was a trap. So that wouldn't surprise me. I don't even know anything about military, and that's what I do. If I know you want Kherson real bad, I'm going to make you think you can have it. I'm going to put it right in front of you. And it ain't going to work out like you want it. But at any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. Let's see. Anybody else? Let's see what a couple people say. Russians know that Nazis can't help themselves for a fake win. That's pretty funny, actually, believe it or not. It's also a place the fox wouldn't go. Exactly. So people understand. At any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, everybody on Rockfin. Couple of things. Wow, 1,467 people watching. But what that means is that 1482, that I should have 1,482 likes. As Alex Christoforous says, smash the like button. Also, a couple other things. As you can see, everything scrolling across the bottom. I got Cash App, DC Radio Man, $ DC Radio Man, buymeacoffee.com. If you don't like PayPal, if you think PayPal is what PayPal really is, Buy Me a Coffee is a great way to help keep the channel going. Everybody, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Make sure you go there. Make sure you are a member. I am so close to 10,000 people. I'm like 18 people away the last time I checked from having 10,000 people on Rockfin. So please go over there, push me over the edge so I can get over 10,000 on Rockfin. Everybody make sure you Rockfin, and anything you can do. Patreon.com, those who can, if you can do $5, $10, $100 a month, whatever you can do to help keep the channel going, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot, everyone. Peace. I'm out.